civilization come from? And the fact that the idea that it emerged in a vacuum is pretty preposterous, seeing as how Crete is smack dab in the middle of the Mediterranean, right in between basically Egypt and Canaan and the landmass that is now known as Europe. So we look from later on, about 75 years later. So you'll see this slide again as well. The political context of the Athens and Sparta rivalry can be understood in this clip from the fantastically something movie, The 300. How many of you have seen it? Oh, good. Okay. And the thing about the Athens versus Sparta rivalry is that you might think a person might conjecture that if someone asks you how your day was and you say, that's a laconic response. Greece. So they're doing two things at once. They're doing democracy and they're doing empire. And in that video, this is General Pericles, who is incredibly powerful, but only as powerful as a general can be in Athens democracy. And at this point, we're looking at this setup with Pericles and his public works ambitions and his political ambitions, the setup to the Peloponnesian War, where the Athens-Sparta alliance is going to fracture, and some interesting things to hammer home today. These pre-Socratics are really kind of amazing. They're passionately interested in the question of why there is material stuff. What is the material world made of now plays a role in some of the cutting-edge ideas of physics. Modern and postmodern physics has now determined the universe is maybe in fact made of in terms of tiny little particles. Some particles that exist sometimes and not others. And it's right around the exact time between the Persian and Peloponnesian Wars, the entrance of Greek philosophy into the classical period. And so there's a shift here that you can talk about in your sections from these kind of natural science questions of what stuff the world is made of to questions of how to think about it, the study of systems of knowledge or epistemology, and what to do about it. The connection between knowledge that believes. So there's a shift here that you can really characterize as a shift from obsessive questions about the composition of the knowledge, also concerned about your own and others' practice of thinking about these big questions. And that's where these ideas actually come out of some of Socrates' actual paradoxes. He's an enigmatic figure. He makes this leap to thinking about big questions. And so Socrates' position is that virtue inheres in knowledge of what is good and bad. And if all it takes to be virtuous is to know the difference between good and evil, then virtue can be taught. This is the leap that he makes, that knowledge in itself can be the key to virtue, and that virtue, which you gain through knowledge, is sufficient for happiness. So, definition of what the word philosophy means, that the way to the good, virtue, right, a good life, moral good, is through knowledge and learning. And once you get that learning and have virtue, you can be happy. And he thinks that this is basically an essential human potential. It's not just for smart people, right? He's saying no one desires evil. No one errs or does wrong or strays from virtue. So that's an explanation of the Socratic leap from questions about the natural world on its own merits to applications of those same principles of observation and reason to the capabilities of the human mind. And so there's something that we still cities, resulting in a kind of crackdown. But before that all goes south, he ends up turning around. His thoughts and his contemporaries' thoughts turn Greek culture in a direction that still survives in its influence today. We call it humanism. You can see from the video, it's the idea that the natural world is not going to be sufficient to unlock the mysteries of why things are the way they are. You have to turn these observational principles that the pre-Socratics developed onto human beings themselves. And they have all this kind of beautiful, wondrous language in praise of the human. This is new, guys. We talked about like the continuities in production of mathematical knowledge from this in science and technology. This is legitimately new. A human-centric, individual-centric, secular, although they had anthropomorphic gods who were very capricious and personified and did all kinds of weird things. This form of humanism that's still the basis of a lot of the Western mindset today originates right here. That turns the powers of reason and observation that have been applied to the natural world onto people, onto the human mind, the human heart, human consciousness. That's the light in which I want us to look at the origin of love. And this is someone's not like an alien creature from another world that you have to like win or possess or be possessed by. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They're like the holy trinity of classical Greek philosophy. And knowledge, logic, the linguistics, the systematic linguistic structures by which you express thoughts, metaphysics, what exists. The list of his works is extreme marriage. These two competing principles, right? Sex and death, love and pain, union coming together, and loss being wrenched apart. We get these from this. Was Alexander the Great's conquest of the known world good or bad? I mean, he conquered enormous amounts of territory, but on the other hand, we get like this amazing exchange of knowledge and culture and philosophical innovation. And if you were one of the peoples he rolled over on his conquest, it wasn't good for you at all, even though learning benefited from this enormous bloodbath that stretched over like all of Asia. So as you won't be surprised to see, you can't answer that question simplistically. Conquest has a lot of different consequences, and if you're the conquered one, it's not good for you at all, no matter what the other consequences are. So last slide, you can see how the aesthetics of the present still draw on and owe an enormous amount to the Greek tradition. This is the Supreme Court building of the United States. This is the Buffalo County Historical Society building, which is the only remaining building in Buffalo from the Pan American Exposition in 1901. Professor William Kennedy was assassinated. This is the only remaining building, and you can see that particularly at the end of the 19th century, there was this real obsession with Greek architecture. The first Olympics was held. This is an ad for the first modern Olympics, held in 1896 to sort of revive and enjoy and draw on Greek aesthetics. It's about contemporaneous with this building, but a lot of the 19th century is claiming and citing this Greek legacy in terms of ideas about democracy and politics as well as aesthetics. So I'll see you on Tuesday, and have a great weekend.